Hollow Highway. Chapter 1. The road opens. Deepak gripped the wheel, eyes straining through the endless darkness. The highway stretched like a black river, signs flickering. Welcome to the road of lost drivers. A chill crawled up his spine. Ahead, a ghostly truck moved smoothly, guiding him into the void. Phantom vehicles appeared on either side, silent, unnerving, moving as if alive. Deepak honked. Nothing. The sound was swallowed by the night. Then he saw it, the first truck in the convoy, driven by Ravi, his trainer who had vanished years ago. Empty sockets stared at him, skeletal fingers pointing forward. Drive, or join us forever. The warning wasn't figurative. Stop, and you vanished. Leave, and you vanished. The only way to survive was to keep driving. Chapter 2. Endless Night. Hours passed, maybe days. Time warped. The sky offered no clues. Shadows flickered in the corner of his vision. Every attempt to turn or exit warped the road, folding the highway back onto itself. Signs repeated endlessly. Next town, 15 kilometers. Next town, 15 kilometers. Next town, 15 kilometers. His mirrors reflected ghost trucks and hollow-eyed drivers who had disappeared. Ravi appeared occasionally, gesturing for him to follow, vanishing into the void. The whispers rose in layers. Laughter, crying, distant commands, inside his mind as well as around him. Deepak's vision blurred. Chapter 3. The Cabin of Ice. The temperature plummeted suddenly. Frost spread across the windshield like icy fingers. A voice inside his mind hissed. You can stop, but only once. Drive, or die forever. Deepak's throat tightened. Accelerator or death. Ice crept along the mirrors, freezing them. He saw another shadow driver appear in the rear view, a black-eyed version of himself, grinning. His reflection began to distort, stretching, twisting, mocking him. Chapter 4. Hallucinations. The road conjured memories, twisted into nightmares. His family waved from the roadside, familiar faces calling his name. As he reached them, their skin melted into shadows, their eyes empty voids. Phantom trucks flanked him, appearing, disappearing, creating impossible intersections. The whispers grew urgent. Not yours. Never yours. Obey the road. Every blink revealed new horrors. Asphalt splitting to reveal hands. Trucks made of smoke. Long-limbed drivers crawling along the sides of the road. Deepak's mind strained under the weight of the endless terror. Hunger, thirst, exhaustion, all meaningless here. Chapter 5. Shadows in the mirrors. In the rear view, Deepak saw hundreds of drivers. Past victims, clones, shadow versions of himself, all staring, waiting. Their eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. A phantom truck merged with his own, like a twin, then split off, surrounding him from all sides. Voices screamed in unison. Drive, drive, drive. Every wrong turn, The Hollow House. The house at the end of Willow Lane had always been wrong. Not in the way a crooked shutter or peeling paint is wrong, but in a deeper, more primal way that made your skin prickle when you passed it. It was a squat, gray Victorian with too many windows, all of them dark, like eyes that never blinked. The townsfolk called it the Hollow House, though no one could say why. It had been empty for decades, or so they thought. When Emily moved to town, she didn't know any better. She was 29, freshly divorced, and looking for a cheap place to start over. The Hollow House was listed for half the price of anything else in the county. She signed a lease without a second thought. The first night, Emily noticed the silence. Not the kind of quiet you get in a small town, where crickets hum and leaves rustle. This was a heavy, suffocating silence, like the house was holding its breath. She unpacked her boxes, trying to fill the space with her life. Books, a coffee maker, a few framed photos of her old dog, Max. But the house felt resistant, as if it didn't want her things. The walls, painted a dull gray, seemed to absorb the light from her lamps. By midnight, she was exhausted and crawled into bed, ignoring the faint creak of the floorboards downstairs. She woke at 3:17 a.m. to a sound like tapping. Not loud, but deliberate, like someone rapping their knuckles on wood. Talp, talp, talp. She sat up, heart thudding, and listened. The sound was coming from the hallway. She grabbed her phone. The screens glow harsh in the dark, and crept to the door. The hallway was empty, the air cold and still. The tapping stopped as soon as she opened the door, leaving only that oppressive silence. She checked every room, flashlight in hand, but found nothing. Just the house, staring back at her through its too many windows. The next morning, Emily laughed it off. Old houses creak, she told herself. She spent the day exploring the town, buying groceries, and chatting with the cashier, an older woman named Ruth who eyed her curiously when she mentioned her address. "You're in the Hollow House?" Ruth asked, her voice low. Emily nodded, expecting a quirky local story. Instead, Ruth's face tightened. "Be careful. Things linger there." Emily pressed for details, but Ruth just shook her head and handed her the receipt. That night, the tapping returned, louder this time. It wasn't just in the hallway. It moved, skittering across the walls like a spider. Emily clutched her blanket, telling herself it was pipes or mice. But then she heard it, a whisper, faint and garbled, like a radio tuned to a dead station. It came from the closet in her bedroom. She froze, her breath shallow, as the whisper grew clearer. "Not yours," it hissed. She didn't sleep again that night. At dawn, she tore open the closet, expecting to find a loose vent or a prankster speaker. Nothing. Just moth-eaten coats left by some long-gone tenant and a faint smell like damp earth. Emily called the landlord, a bored man named Greg who lived 2 towns over. "Old houses make noises," he said, barely listening. "Check for drafts." She did, sealing every window and door with tape, but the house still felt alive. The third night, she set up her phone to record while she slept, hoping to catch the sounds and prove she wasn't crazy. When she played it back in the morning, her stomach dropped. The tapping was there, clear as day, but so was the whisper. "Not yours." It repeated over and over, layered with other voices, too faint to make out. At one point, the recording caught her own voice, mumbling in her sleep, "Leave me alone." She hadn't remembered saying it. Desperate, Emily drove to the library, digging through old records for anything about the house. The librarian, a wiry man with thick glasses, pointed her to a dusty box of newspapers from the 1970s. She found a single article, yellowed and brittle, about a family who lived in the Hollow House in 1973. The Millers. They'd vanished one night. Parents, 2 kids, even their dog. No bodies, no clues, just an empty house. The article mentioned strange noises reported by neighbors, but the police dismissed it as a runaway case. Scribbled in the margin, in faded ink, was a single word, "Hollow." Emily's hands shook as she drove home. She didn't want to go back, but her things were there. Her life was there. She couldn't just leave. That evening, she set up more recordings, this time with a cheap security camera she'd bought at the hardware store. She sat in the living room, lights blazing, and waited. The tapping started at midnight, followed by the whispers. They were louder now, not just from the closet, but from the walls, the ceiling, the floor. "Not yours," they chanted, overlapping, angry. She checked the camera feed on her laptop. The screen showed her sitting on the couch, but behind her, in the corner of the room, was a shadow. It wasn't hers. It was tall, thin, and featureless, like a silhouette cut from black paper. She whipped around, but the corner was empty. She didn't sleep. The next day, she called a local priest, Father Thomas, who agreed to bless the house. He arrived with a worn Bible and a vial of holy water, his face grim. "I've heard of this place," he said, stepping inside. He didn't elaborate, just moved from room to room, muttering prayers. The air grew heavier, the silence thicker, as if the house was pushing back. In the bedroom, he paused at the closet. "Something's here," he whispered, splashing holy water on the door. The wood hissed like it was burning. Emily's knees buckled. Father Thomas grabbed her arm and pulled her out of the house, telling her to stay at a motel. "Don't come back until I've spoken to the diocese," he said, his voice trembling. She checked into a motel, but sleep wouldn't come. She kept replaying the camera footage, zooming in on the shadow. It wasn't just featureless. It had edges that blurred like it was fraying into the air. She called Father Thomas the next morning, but he didn't answer. She drove to the church and found it locked, the lot empty. A neighbor said he'd left town abruptly, no explanation. Emily's fear hardened into resolve. She wasn't going to let the house win. She returned that afternoon, armed with salt, sage, and every protective charm she could buy online. She wasn't religious, but she'd try anything. The house felt different when she walked in. The air was thick, like wading through water. She lit the sage, spreading smoke through every room, and poured salt along the thresholds. The whispers started immediately, louder than ever, a chorus of voices screaming, "Not yours." The tapping became banging, shaking the walls. She shouted back, "This is my home." The lights flickered and the temperature plummeted. Her breath fogged in front of her. Then silence. Absolute, deafening silence. She checked the camera feed. The shadow was back, but it wasn't in the corner. It was behind her, inches away, its edges writhing like smoke. She didn't turn around. She couldn't. Her phone buzzed in her hand. A notification from the camera app. Motion detected. But she was standing still. The screen showed the shadow moving, stretching, its form splitting into smaller shapes, human-like but wrong. Their limbs too long, their heads too small. They crawled across the walls of the feed, converging on her. Emily ran for the door, but it wouldn't open. The knob turned, but the door stayed sealed, as if the house itself was holding it shut. The whispers became screams. Not words anymore, just raw, animalistic rage. She stumbled to the kitchen, grabbing a knife, and hacked at the doorframe. Splinters flew, but the door didn't budge. The camera, still recording, caught something new. Handprints, small and smudged, appearing on the walls, the ceiling, the windows. Dozens of them, multiplying, closing in. She sank to the floor, sobbing, clutching the knife. The shadows on the camera feed were gone, but the handprints remained. Then she heard it, a new sound, not tapping or whispering, but footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming from the basement. The house didn't have a basement. She'd checked the blueprints before moving in, but the sound was unmistakable. Heavy boots on creaking stairs, getting closer. She crawled to the hallway, staring at the spot where the basement door should have been. There was nothing but a blank wall. The footsteps stopped. A voice spoke, clear and calm, from nowhere and everywhere. "You don't belong here." It wasn't a whisper. It was deeper, older, final. The wall in front of her cracked, a thin line splitting the plaster. It widened, revealing darkness beyond, not a room but a void. Hands reached out, pale, bony, with nails like claws. They grabbed her arms, her legs, her hair. She screamed, slashing with the knife, but it passed through them like smoke. The hands pulled, and the void swallowed her. The next morning, the hollow house was quiet. Emily's car sat in the driveway, her belongings still scattered inside. The landlord, Greg, came by after she missed a call. He found the door unlocked, the house empty. No sign of struggle, no blood, no knife. Just her phone, looping the same camera footage. Emily sitting on the couch, the shadow behind her, the handprints, the void. The footage cut off abruptly. Greg deleted it, his hands shaking, and put the house back on the market. It sold within a week. The new tenant, a young man named Daniel, moved in with a smile, excited for a fresh start. That night, he heard tapping. He laughed it off. Old houses, right? But the whispers started soon after. "Not yours," they said. And in the darkness of the hollow house, something waited. Daniel was 24, fresh out of college, and optimistic to a fault. The hollow house was a steal, way below market value for a place so big. Sure, it was old, with creaky floors and windows that rattled in the wind, but he saw potential. A fixer-upper, he told himself, perfect for his YouTube channel on home renovations. He didn't know about Emily or the Millers or the whispers that clung to the house like damp rot. The townsfolk didn't tell him. They avoided his eyes when he mentioned his new address, muttering vague warnings about keeping the lights on. Daniel chalked it up to small-town superstition and moved in with a toolbox, a camera, and a playlist of upbeat lo-fi beats. The first day was fine. He filmed a walkthrough for his channel, cracking jokes about the dusty chandeliers and the wallpaper that peeled like dead skin. The house felt cold, even in the August heat, but he blamed the lack of insulation. That night, he edited his footage in the living room, the glow of his laptop cutting through the gloom. The silence was thick, heavier than any house he'd ever been in. He turned up his music, but it sounded tinny, swallowed by the walls. Around midnight, he heard the tapping, soft at first, like a fingertip on glass. Talp, talp, talp. He paused his music, tilting his head. It was coming from upstairs. Probably pipes, he muttered, grabbing his phone to record the sound for his blog. Content, he thought. Old houses always have quirks. He followed the noise to the hallway, where it grew louder, more insistent. It wasn't pipes. It was too rhythmic, too deliberate. He shone his phone's flashlight up the staircase, the beam catching dust motes and little else. The tapping stopped abruptly, replaced by a faint hum, like a distant radio. He strained to listen. Words, maybe, but too soft to make out. He laughed nervously, filming himself. Okay, house, you're officially creepy. Subscribers are gonna love this. He didn't sleep well. Dreams of long, dark corridors and hands brushing his face kept jerking him awake. By morning, he was groggy but determined to make progress. He started in the kitchen, prying up warped floorboards for a video on budget renovations. Under one board, he found a small, rusted key, its teeth jagged and uneven. It didn't match any lock in the house. Curious, he pocketed it, planning to research old key designs for his channel. That's when he noticed the smell, faint, like wet earth and something sour. It came from a wall behind the stove where the plaster was slightly discolored, almost yellow. He tapped it with his hammer, and the wall answered back. Talp, talp, talp. He froze. The sound wasn't an echo. It was slower, mocking. Daniel posted his video that afternoon, joking about the haunted vibes to hook viewers. Comments flooded in, mostly encouraging, but one stood out. A user named No One Leaves wrote, "Get out." It knows you're there. Daniel laughed it off as a troll, but the username stuck with him. He checked the house's history online, finding nothing but a brief mention of a family disappearing in the 1970s. No details, no follow-up. He texted his landlord, Greg, asking if anyone else had lived there recently. Greg's reply was curt, "Just you. House has been empty for years." That night, the tapping returned, louder, joined by the whispers. They weren't words at first, just a low, guttural hum that made his teeth ache. He set up his camera again, this time with a tripod in the hallway. "All right, ghost hunters," he said to the lens, forcing a grin. "Let's see what's up." The whispers grew clearer as he spoke, forming words, "Not yours." He stopped, heart pounding. The camera's red light blinked steadily, but the screen showed something wrong. His reflection in the hallway mirror wasn't moving. It stood still, staring, while he waved his hand. "What the hell?" he whispered, stepping closer. The reflection blinked. He hadn't. He yanked the camera off the tripod and checked the footage. There it was, his reflection, frozen, then blinking, its mouth curling into a smile he didn't make. The whispers were louder on the recording, layered with other voices, too many to count. "Not yours. Never yours." He stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. The bulb shattered, plunging the room into darkness. The tapping became banging, shaking the walls, the floor, the ceiling. He ran to the front door, but it wouldn't budge, the knob spinning uselessly. The whispers turned to screams, a cacophony of rage that filled his skull. Daniel sprinted to the kitchen, grabbing the rusted key from his pocket. He didn't know why. It just felt like something to hold on to. The banging stopped, replaced by footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming from the wall where the smell was strongest. The yellowed plaster cracked, a hairline fracture spreading like a spiderweb. He backed away, clutching the key so hard it cut his palm. The wall split open, revealing not a room but a void, black and endless, like the one that had swallowed Emily. Hands reached out, pale, skeletal, with nails that glinted like glass. They didn't grab him. They pointed all at once at the key in his hand. He ran upstairs, locking himself in the bedroom. The whispers followed, seeping through the walls. "Give it back," they said over and over. He looked at the key, its jagged edges glinting in the moonlight. It felt heavier now, warm, almost pulsing. He tried to call Greg, but his phone had no signal, the screen flickering with static. The camera, still recording, caught shapes in the corner of the room, shadows tall and thin, their edges fraying like smoke. They didn't move closer, just watched, their forms splitting into smaller shapes, crawling along the walls like insects. Daniel's mind raced. The key. It had to mean something. He remembered the article about the Millers, the family that vanished. Maybe the key was theirs, tied to whatever happened. He searched the bedroom, tearing through drawers and under the bed, looking for anything that matched the key's strange design. In the closet, behind a pile of old clothes, he found a small, locked box, its surface etched with symbols he didn't recognize, spirals, jagged lines, like something carved in a panic. The key fit perfectly. He hesitated, the whispers now a deafening roar. "Give it back." He turned the key. The box clicked open, revealing a bundle of papers, yellowed and brittle. They were letters, written in a shaky hand, dated 1973. The Millers. The first one read, "We found the door. It wasn't here before. It wants something. We hear it at night, asking for the key." Another. "The children see them now. Shadows in the walls. They won't let us leave." The last page wasn't a letter, but a drawing, crude and childlike. A house with too many windows, hands reaching from the walls, and a single word scrawled in red crayon. Hollow. The floor shook, and the void in the kitchen wall groaned, like a mouth opening wider. Daniel stuffed the letters in his pocket and ran downstairs, the box clutched to his chest. The shadows were everywhere now, crawling across the ceiling, the windows, the floor. The front door was still sealed, but he noticed something new, a faint outline in the living room wall where the plaster was discolored. It looked like a door, one that hadn't been there before. The key grew hotter in his hand, burning his skin. He pressed it against the outline, and the wall shuddered, splitting open to reveal another void. But this one was different. There was light inside, faint and cold, like a distant star. He stepped through, the box under his arm. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of earth and decay. He was in a room, or something like a room, its walls pulsing like living tissue. The shadows were here, too, but they didn't move. They stood in a circle, their forms clearer now, human-like but wrong, their faces blank except for mouths that opened too wide. In the center was a pedestal, and on it a lock. The key in his hand vibrated, pulling toward it. The whispers were gone, replaced by a single voice, deep and ancient. "Return it." Daniel's hand shook as he placed the key in the lock. The pedestal sank into the floor, and the shadows screamed, their forms dissolving into smoke. The room collapsed, the walls folding inward, and he was back in the living room, the box still in his arms. The door was gone. The house was silent. He opened the front door, it worked now, and stepped outside, gasping in the cool night air. The box felt lighter, the key gone, as if it had never been. He didn't go back inside. He drove to the motel, the letters scattered on the passenger seat. The next day, he called Greg, demanding answers. Greg claimed ignorance, but his voice was shaky. "Just leave it," he said. "I'll refund your deposit." Daniel didn't care about the money. He posted the letters online, along with his footage, warning anyone who'd listen about the Hollow House. The video went viral, then disappeared, scrubbed from the internet. His channel was banned for violating community guidelines. The house went back on the market. A new tenant moved in, a young woman with a suitcase and a hopeful smile. That night, she heard tapping. Daniel, now living 3 states away, woke from a nightmare of hands and voids, the word hollow echoing in his mind. He checked his phone, half expecting a message. There was nothing, but he knew the house wasn't done. It never would be. The Hollow House ended. Daniel couldn't stay away. The Hollow House clung to him, its whispers echoing in his dreams, its shadows lurking in every dark corner of his new apartment 3 states away. The letters he'd found in the box, now hidden in a shoebox under his bed, burned in his mind. He'd read them 100 times, each word a splinter under his skin. The miller's words, "It wants the key, the shadows won't let us leave," mingled with his own memories of the void, the hands, the lock. He'd returned the key, hadn't he? So why did he still feel it, heavy in his palm, when he woke gasping at night? He tried to move on. He got a job, stopped posting online, avoided mirrors. But the house wasn't done with him. One night, his phone buzzed at 3:17 a.m., the same time Emily had heard the tapping. A text from an unknown number. "You left something." Attached was a photo of the hollow house's front door, open, the darkness inside swallowing the light. He blocked the number, but the text kept coming, every night. "Come back. It's not yours. They're waiting." He didn't sleep anymore. A month later, Daniel drove back to Willow Lane. He told himself it was to end this, to burn the house down if he had to. The town was quieter now, the streets emptier. The new tenant, the woman he'd read about in a local news snippet, was gone. Missing, they said, like Emily, like the Millers. The house stood unchanged, its windows dark, its gray walls drinking in the moonlight. Daniel's hands shook as he approached, a gaskin in one hand, matches in his pocket. The letters were tucked into his jacket, their weight grounding him. The front door was unlocked, just as it had been for Emily. The air inside was cold, thick with the smell of damp earth and something sharper like blood. The silence was alive, pressing against his eardrums. He set the gaskin down, hesitating. The tapping started, soft at first, then louder, coming from the living room wall where he'd found the hidden door. He didn't want to look, but his feet moved anyway, drawn like a moth to a flame. The wall was cracked, the outline of the door faintly visible. He touched it, and the plaster crumbled, revealing the void again, black, endless, with that faint, cold light pulsing in its depths. The whispers returned, not angry this time, but pleading. "Give it back," they said, voices overlapping. Men, women, children, and something else, something older. Daniel pulled the letters from his jacket, his hands trembling. "I gave you the key," he shouted, voice cracking. "What do you want?" The void pulsed, and the light grew brighter, revealing shapes within. Figures, dozens of them, standing in a vast, cavernous space. Emily was there, her face pale, her eyes empty. The Millers, too, their forms blurred but recognizable from old photos he'd found online. And others, countless others, stretching back through time, all staring at him. The voice spoke again, clear and final. The dead. Daniel's heart stopped. The letters slipped from his hands, scattering across the floor. The drawing, the one with the house and the hands, glowed faintly, the red crayon marks pulsing like veins. He understood now. The house wasn't just a place. It was a trap, a debt collector for something ancient, something that fed on those who dared to claim it. The key wasn't enough. It wanted him too. He grabbed the gas can, splashing liquid across the floor, the walls, the letters. The whispers screamed. The void shuddered, hands reaching out, clawing at the air. He struck a match, the flame trembling in his hand. "No more," he said, dropping it. The fire caught instantly, roaring through the house. The shadows writhed, their screams drowning out the crackle of flames. Daniel ran, the heat searing his back, the void collapsing behind him. He didn't look back. By morning, the hollow house was ash, a blackened scar on Willow Lane. The townsfolk gathered, silent, their faces unreadable. The fire was ruled an accident, no questions asked. Daniel left town, never speaking of it again. The lot stayed empty, the ground too toxic to rebuild on, or so they said. But at night, when the wind was still, those who passed by swore they heard tapping from the earth, faint and deliberate. And in the dark, a whisper, "Not yours." The Hollow Route. Chapter 1. The Midnight Call. The dashboard clock blinked 3:22 a.m., its faint orange light cutting through the gloom of Sarah Kane's Peterbilt cab. The Texas Panhandle sprawled beyond the windshield, a flat expanse of dust and mesquite under a starless sky. Sarah, A 39-year-old driver with a faded tattoo of a hawk on her wrist sipped lukewarm soda from a can. She'd been hauling for 18 years, from cattle to machine parts, and took pride in tough runs. Tonight's job came from her dispatcher, Mitch, who sounded shaky over the phone. "Sarah, it's a rush haul from Amarillo to Lubbock. Pays triple, but you gotta roll now." Sarah needed the money. Her mom's medical bills were piling up, and her rig's brakes were shot. "What's the load?" she asked. Mitch paused, then muttered, "Sensitive cargo, locked trailer. No stops, no questions." The unease in his voice nagged her, but triple pay was a godsend. She picked up the trailer in Amarillo, a matte silver box with no markings, sealed with a thick bolt lock. The manifest read proprietary materials, no details. She hit Highway 27, the air dry and heavy with dust. The road was a dark ribbon, no cars, no lights. Sarah kept the radio off, the engine's growl her only companion. The trailer felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. 30 miles out, a faint clink started, like glass tapping metal coming from the trailer. She glanced at her mirrors, seeing only the silver box swallowed by night. Chapter 2. The dust stopped. Sarah pulled into a rest area near Plainview, tires crunching on gravel. The lot was empty, just a warped sign and a single bulb flickering like a dying star. She grabbed a flashlight and a wrench, ignoring Mitch's no-stop rule. The clinking was louder, rhythmic, like a metronome. She checked the trailer's lock, secure, no scratches. She wrapped the wrench against it, the sound sharp in the still air. The clinking stopped, replaced by a low hum, like air vibrating in a pipe. She pressed her ear to the trailer's wall, her breath catching. A whisper came, "Sarah," soft and dry, like rustling leaves. She stumbled back, the flashlight beam trembling. The hum deepened, and now she heard scratching, like nails dragging across metal, slow and precise. The desert was silent. No wind, no coyotes, just that scratching, growing faster. She backed to the cab, her heart pounding, and locked herself in. The engine roared as she hit the highway, the trailer dragging behind. The clinking returned, sharper like something tapping to get out. The CB hissed, though she hadn't touched it. "You stopped, Sarah," a voice said, low and grainy, like it was carved from sand. She yanked the CB's plug, but the voice lingered close like it was in the cab. The scratching turned to bangs, heavy like something slamming inside the trailer. Chapter 3. The Shadow Rig. At 4:10 a.m., headlights flared in her mirrors, dim and yellow, like old lanterns. A truck, dark and unmarked, no plates, rotor tail. She flashed her lights, but it stayed close, its engine a low drone that shook her bones. The CB crackled. "You can't hide, Sarah," the voice mocked. She pushed the rig to 70, but the dark truck matched her, its lights flickering. Then it vanished, leaving only the empty road. The banging grew frantic, the trailer shaking. A new sound emerged, a low, hollow moan, like wind through a cave. She saw a diner ahead, its sign buzzing faintly. She pulled in, tires skidding. The lot held one rig, a battered Volvo, windows dark. Inside, a lone cashier stood, polishing a counter. "Something's in my trailer," Sarah gasped. The cashier looked up, her face too smooth, eyes like empty. "You took its load," she said, pointing outside. Sarah turned. The trailer's doors were ajar, a shadow shifting inside, too long, too thin. She ran, but the diner was dark, windows boarded, the Volvo gone like it was never there. The Cursed Hall. Chapter 1. The Desperate Deal. The dashboard clock glowed 1:15 a.m., its pale green light casting shadows across the cab of Lena Walsh's Kenworth truck. The Louisiana bayou stretched out beyond the windshield, a maze of swampy water and twisted cypress trees, their branches draped in Spanish moss like ghostly curtains. Lena, a 43-year-old trucker with a buzz cut and a scar above her left eyebrow from a bad wreck, sipped cold coffee from a dented thermos. She'd been hauling freight for 20 years, from cotton to chemicals, and was used to tough runs. Tonight, she was on a rush job from Baton Rouge to Mobile, a gig her dispatcher, Earl, had practically pleaded with her to take. "Lena, it's a fat paycheck," Earl had said over the phone, his voice rough with nerves. "Pick up a trailer in Morgan City. Drop it in Mobile by dawn. Pays triple, but you gotta move now." Lena didn't like the edge in his tone. Earl was usually a gruff, no-nonsense guy, but triple pay was a lifesaver. Her brother's rehab stint was costing a fortune, and her truck's engine was on its last legs. "What's the load?" she asked. "Private cargo," Earl said, vague as hell. "Si trailer no tachi." Just drive, no stops. Lena frowned, but took the job. She wasn't one to scare easy, but Earl's voice lingered, like he was hiding something. The manifest was waiting at the pickup, a single sheet listing confidential materials with no specifics. She hit the road, the bayou's humid air clinging to her skin. Highway 90 was a lonely stretch, winding through the swamp with no lights or cars in sight. The air was thick, smelling of mud and decay. Lena kept the radio off, the rumble of the engine her only company. The trailer was a plain black box, no logos, locked tight with a heavy padlock. It felt too light for materials, but she didn't dwell on it. Shady loads were part of the job sometimes. She was 25 miles out of Morgan City when she heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping from the trailer, like something knocking on wood. She stiffened, glancing at the side mirror. The trailer was a dark shape in the night, its edges blurred by the swamp's mist. The tapping came again, sharper, followed by a faint creak, like something shifting inside. Lena's heart skipped. She'd hauled enough to know what a loose load sounded like. This wasn't it. She flicked on the CB, hoping to hear another driver, but all she got was static, heavy, and buzzing like a hornet's nest. She switched channels, and a voice broke through, low and gravelly, like it was coming from underwater. "Lena," it said, her name slow and deliberate. She froze, her hand on the mic. "Who's this?" she demanded. No answer, just static, and then another tap, louder like something hitting the trailer's wall. Chapter 2, the swamp stopped. Lena pulled over at a rest area near Homa, the tires sinking slightly into the soft, wet ground. The lot was empty, just a faded sign and a single flickering light post half covered in moss. She grabbed her flashlight and a tire iron from under the seat, ignoring Earl's no-stop rule. She wasn't driving another mile with that noise. The trailer loomed behind the cab, its black walls blending into the swamp's darkness. The tapping had stopped, but the air was heavy, like it was pressing down on her. She checked the padlock, still locked, no scratches or dents. She tapped it with the tire iron, the sound echoing in the still night. Nothing happened. She pressed her ear to the trailer door, her breath shallow. A low drone came from inside, not mechanical, but deep like a voice stuck in a throat. "Lena," the voice whispered, not from the CB, but from the trailer, like it was leaking through the metal. She stumbled back, the flashlight beam shaking. The drone grew louder, and now she heard something else. A faint scratching, like claws dragging across the floor, slow and deliberate. She backed toward the cab, her pulse racing. The swamp was silent. No frogs, no crickets, just that scratching, getting faster. She climbed into the cab and locked the doors, the tire iron still in her hand. The engine roared as she pulled back onto the highway, the trailer dragging behind her. The tapping started again, harder, like something was pounding on the walls. The CB crackled, the voice back clearer now. "You shouldn't have stopped, Lena," it said, almost gentle. "It knows you now." Lena yanked the CB's cord from the dash, but the voice didn't stop. It was in the cab, low and close, like someone was sitting next to her. She glanced at the passenger seat. Empty, just her jacket and a pack of gum. The tapping turned into a thud, heavy and rhythmic, like footsteps pacing inside the trailer. She pushed the truck to 70, the engine groaning, but the thudding kept pace, relentless. The road signs were wrong. She passed a marker for Homa, 10 miles, but she just left Homa. She checked her map. Her phone was dead. No signal, no GPS. The highway looked the same, endless swamp on both sides, but the mile markers were looping, like she was trapped in a circle. The thudding grew louder, and now there was a new sound, a low, wet rasp like something breathing through mud. Chapter 3. The Phantom Truck. Around 2:30 a.m., Lena saw headlights in her side mirror. Faint at first, then closer, too close. Another truck, big and black. No markings, no plates, riding her tail. She flashed her lights, signaling for it to back off, but it stayed glued to her bumper, its headlights a sickly green, like swamp gas. She sped up to 80, but the black truck kept pace, its engine a low growl that shook the cab. The CB crackled, even though it was unplugged. "You can't run, Lena," the voice said, laughing now a sound like snapping twigs. The black truck honked, a deep, guttural blast that rattled her bones. Lena's hands shook as she gripped the wheel. She floored the gas, pushing the Kenworth to its limit, but the black truck stayed with her, its headlights blinding in the mirrors. Then, just as suddenly it was gone, no lights, no sound, just the empty road behind her. Her heart pounded, her breath coming in gasps. The thudding in the trailer was faster now, like whatever was inside was agitated. The rasping grew louder, and now she heard words in it. Her name, over and over, mixed with sounds she couldn't understand. She saw a truck stop ahead, its sign flickering open 24 hours. She pulled in, tires screeching, and parked under a dim floodlight. The lot was empty except for a single rig, an old Freightliner with no plates, its windows dark. The diner was open, but the lights were low, the air thick with the smell of stale coffee. Lena ran inside, clutching the tire iron. A lone waitress stood behind the counter, wiping a glass with a rag. "You gotta help me," Lena said, her voice trembling. "There's something in my trailer." The waitress didn't look up, just kept wiping. "You shouldn't have taken that load," she said, her voice flat. Lena's stomach dropped. "What do you know?" The waitress turned, and her face was wrong. Pale, almost translucent, with eyes too big, like they were sinking into her skull. "It's awake now," she said, pointing at the window. Lena spun around. The trailer was darker than the night, its doors open, swinging slightly. Something moved inside, a shadow that was too tall, too thin. She ran for the door, but when she reached the lot, the Freightliner was gone, and the diner's lights were off, the windows boarded up like it had been abandoned for years. The Forgotten Load. Chapter 1. The Urgent Haul. The dashboard clock glowed 12:47 a.m., its pale red light flickering in the cab of Tom Rourke's Mack truck. The Oregon backroads twisted beyond the windshield, a tangle of pine and fog under a starless sky. Tom, a 45-year-old driver with a weathered face and a limp from a bad knee, sipped bitter coffee from a thermos. He'd been hauling for 22 years, from timber to steel, and never turned down a job. Tonight's run came from his dispatcher, Cal, who sounded off. "Tom, it's a rush job from Eugene to Klamath Falls. Pays triple, but you gotta move fast." Tom needed the money. His son's hospital bills were crushing, and his rig's clutch was failing. "What's the cargo?" he asked. Cal's voice cracked. "Private load, sealed trailer. No stops, no looking." The urgency bugged Tom, but triple pay was a lifeline. He picked up the trailer in Eugene, a dull gray box with no logos, locked with a heavy steel clasp. The manifest said restricted goods, no specifics. He hit Highway 58, the air damp and thick with pine. The road was desolate, no lights, no cars. Tom kept the radio off, the engine's rumble his only sound. The trailer felt too light, like it was empty. 40 miles out, a faint rustle started, like fabric brushing metal, coming from the trailer. He checked his mirrors. The gray box was a shadow in the fog. The rustling grew, sharper like something sliding inside. Chapter 2. The Fog Stop. Tom pulled into a rest area near Oak Ridge, tires crunching on wet gravel. The lot was empty, just a faded sign and a lone bulb buzzing faintly. He grabbed a flashlight and a tire thumper, ignoring Cal's no-stop rule. The rustling was louder, erratic like something restless. He checked the trailer's clasp. Locked tight, no marks. He tapped it with the thumper, the sound swallowed by the fog. The rustling stopped, replaced by a low whine, like air leaking from a tire. He pressed his ear to the trailer, breath shallow. A voice hissed, "Tom, thin and cold, like it came from the wind. He stumbled back, the flashlight shaking. The whine grew, and now he heard a scrape, like something clawing at the trailer's floor, slow and deliberate. The forest was silent. No owls, no breeze, just that scraping, quickening. He hurried to the cab, locking the doors, his pulse racing. The engine growled as he hit the road, the trailer dragging behind. The rustling returned, frantic, like something thrashing. The CB crackled, though he hadn't touched it. "You stop, Tom," a voice said, sharp and hollow, like it echoed from a well. He ripped the CB's cord out, but the voice lingered, close like it was behind him. The scraping turned to knocks, heavy like something pounding to escape. Chapter 3, The Phantom Rig. At 1:59 a.m., headlights flared in his mirrors, dim and gray, like dirty glass. A truck, black and unmarked, no plates, rode his bumper. He signaled for it to pass, but it stayed close, its engine a low snarl. The CB hissed. "You can't leave, Tom," the voice sneered. He pushed the rig to 65, but the black truck matched him, its lights pulsing. Then it vanished, the road empty again. The knocking grew wild, the trailer shaking. A new sound rose, a low, guttural hum, like a chant from deep earth. He spotted a diner ahead, its sign flickering. He pulled in, tires skidding. The lot held one rig, an old Kenworth, windows dark. Inside, a lone waitress stood, wiping a counter. "Something's in my trailer," Tom said, voice shaking. She looked up, her face too pale, eyes like voids. "You took its load," she said, pointing outside. Tom turned. The trailer's doors were open, a shadow shifting inside, too tall, too wrong. He ran, but the diner was dark, windows boarded, the Kenworth gone, like it had never existed. The Midnight Run. Chapter 1, The Last Minute Load. The dashboard clock read 2:07 a.m., its dim blue glow cutting through the dark cab of Jack Tully's Freightliner. The Nevada desert stretched endless beyond the windshield, a sea of sand and scrub under a moonless sky. Jack, a 48-year-old driver with a graying beard and knuckles scarred from bar fights, chewed on a stale cigar. He'd been hauling for 25 years, from produce to auto parts, and took pride in never refusing a run. Tonight's job came from his dispatcher, Roy, who sounded desperate over the phone. "Jack, it's a quick haul from Reno to Barstow. Pays double, but you gotta leave now." Jack needed the cash. His daughter's college tuition was overdue, and his rig's transmission was coughing. "What's the cargo?" he asked. Roy hesitated, then said, "Specialty goods, sealed trailer. No peeking, just drive." Jack didn't like the vagueness, but double pay was rare. He picked up the trailer in Reno, a gray box with no markings, secured with a heavy chain lock. The manifest listed industrial equipment, nothing more. He hit Highway 95, the desert air dry and biting. The road was empty, the only sound the hum of tires on asphalt. Jack kept the radio off, preferring the rhythm of the engine. The trailer felt oddly heavy, like it was dragging more than it should. He shrugged it off, probably just a dense load. But 30 miles out, a faint hum started, not from the engine but the trailer, low and pulsing like a distant generator. Chapter 2, The Desert Whisper. Jack pulled into a rest stop near Tonopah, the gravel crunching under his tires. The lot was barren, just a rusted sign and a flickering sodium light. He grabbed a flashlight and a crowbar, ignoring Roy's no-stop rule. The hum was louder now, steady like a heartbeat. He checked the trailer's lock, intact, no tampering. He tapped the chain with the crowbar, the clang sharp in the quiet night. The hum stopped, replaced by a faint scrape, like metal dragging on metal. Jack pressed his ear to the trailer side. A voice whispered, "Jack," soft and raspy, like wind over sand. He jerked back, the flashlight beam darting across the trailer's blank walls. The scraping grew sharper, deliberate, like something pacing inside. He scanned the desert. Nothing but shadows and sagebrush. The air felt wrong, heavy, like a storm was coming, though the sky was clear. Back in the cab, he locked the doors and hit the gas, the trailer rattling behind him. The hum returned, louder, syncing with a faint vibration in the steering wheel. The CB radio hissed, though he hadn't touched it. "Jack," the voice said again, clearer, like it was sitting beside him. He switched it off, but the voice persisted, low and mocking. "You're late, Jack." The road signs were off. A marker read Tonopah, 15 miles, but he'd passed Tonopah 20 minutes ago. His GPS flickered, then died. The highway looped, the same Joshua tree appearing every few miles. The scraping turned to thuds, heavy, like something slamming against the trailer's walls. Chapter 3. The Ghost Rig. At 3:12 a.m., headlights flared in Jack's mirrors, bright and cold, like ice. A truck, sleek and silver, no plates, hugged his tail. He flashed his lights, but it didn't budge, its engine a deep snarl. The CB crackled. "You can't outrun it, Jack," the voice taunted. He pushed the rig to 75, but the silver truck matched him, its lights blinding. Then it vanished, leaving only darkness. Jack's pulse raced. The thuds grew frantic, the trailer shaking. A new sound emerged, a low, guttural moan, like air escaping a sealed vault. He spotted a diner ahead, its neon sign buzzing. He pulled in, tires skidding. The lot held one rig, an old Mac, windows black. Inside the diner, a lone cook stood, flipping a burger. "Something's in my trailer," Jack said, voice tight. The cook glanced up, his eyes too pale like faded glass. "You took the wrong load," he said, pointing outside. Jack turned. The trailer's doors were open, a shadow moving inside, too large, too wrong. He ran, but the diner was dark, windows boarded, the Mac gone, like it had never been. The Silent Freight. Chapter 1. The Late Night Job. The dashboard clock glowed, 4:13 a.m., its faint yellow light casting shadows in the cab of Ellie Morse's Volvo truck. The Wyoming plains stretched beyond the windshield, a vast sea of grass and rock under a moonless sky. Ellie, a 41-year-old driver with a ponytail and a scar on her chin from a bar fight, sipped tepid energy drink from a can. She'd hauled freight for 19 years, from grain to machinery, and never backed down from a run. Tonight's job came from her dispatcher, Gus, who sounded tense. "Ellie, it's a rush haul from Casper to Rock Springs. Pays triple, but you gotta go now." Ellie needed the cash. Her kids' braces were expensive, and her rig's alternator was failing. "What's the load?" she asked. Gus hesitated, then said, "Confidential cargo, sealed trailer. No stops, no peeking." His tone unnerved her, but triple pay was rare. She picked up the trailer in Casper, a plain black box with no markings, locked with a heavy steel bolt. The manifest listed specialized equipment, no details. She hit Highway 287, the air cold and sharp with sage. The road was empty, no lights, no cars. Ellie kept the radio off, the engine's hum her only sound. The trailer felt too heavy, like it was pulling against her. 50 miles out, a faint thump started, like something rolling inside the trailer, slow and uneven. She checked her mirrors. The black box was a shadow in the dark. The thumping grew, sharper like something settling. Chapter 2. The Plane Stop. Ellie pulled into a rest area near Rollins, tires crunching on frost-covered gravel. The lot was barren, just a rusted sign and a dim bulb flickering faintly. She grabbed a flashlight and a pry bar, ignoring Gus's no-stop rule. The thumping was louder, rhythmic like a heartbeat. She checked the trailer's bolt. Secure, no scratches. She tapped it with the pry bar, the sound swallowed by the night. The thumping stopped, replaced by a low buzz like static from a dead radio. She pressed her ear to the trailer's wall, breath fogging in the cold. A voice whispered, "Ellie," soft and sharp like a blade on stone. She jerked back, the flashlight beam shaking. The buzz grew, and now she heard scraping, like something dragging across the trailer's floor, slow and deliberate. The planes were silent. No wind, no animals, just that scraping quickening. She backed to the cab, heart racing, and locked the doors. The engine roared as she hit the highway, the trailer dragging behind. The thumping returned, harder like something pounding inside. The CB crackled, though she hadn't touched it. "You stopped, Ellie," a voice said, low and cold, like it came from the ground. She yanked the CB's plug, but the voice lingered close like it was in the cab. The scraping turned to bangs, heavy like something trying to break free. Chapter 3. The Ghost Truck. At 5:08 a.m., headlights flared in her mirrors, pale and cold like frost. A truck, gray and unmarked, no plates, hugged her tail. She flashed her lights, but it stayed close, its engine a deep growl. The CB hissed. "You can't run, Ellie," the voice mocked. She pushed the rig to 70, but the gray truck matched her, its lights pulsing. Then it vanished, leaving only darkness. The banging grew frantic, the trailer shaking. A new sound rose, a low, hollow moan, like air through a cracked pipe. She spotted a diner ahead, its sign flickering. She pulled in, tires skidding. The lot held one rig, an old Freightliner, windows dark. Inside, a lone cook stood, wiping a counter. "Something's in my trailer," Ellie gasped. He looked up, his face too pale, eyes like empty glass. "You took its load," he said, pointing outside. Ellie turned. The trailer's doors were open, a shadow moving inside, too tall, too wrong. She ran, but the diner was dark, windows boarded, the Freightliner gone, like it had never been. Chapter 4. The Thing in the Swamp. Lena approached the trailer, tire iron in hand, her pulse hammering. The rasping was louder, mixed with a scraping sound like claws on metal. She shone her flashlight inside. The trailer was empty, but the walls were covered in scratches, deep and jagged, like something had been clawing at them for hours. At the far end, the shadow was there, tall, thin, its head bent at a wrong angle, its eyes glowing like swamp fire. She slammed the door shut and ran to the cab. The engine sputtered, like something was draining the battery. She floored it, the truck lurching forward, but the rasping followed, now coming from under the cab like whatever was in the trailer had crawled beneath the truck. She swerved, trying to shake it, but the sound stayed with her, louder, closer. The CB crackled. "You can't hide, Lena," the voice said, mocking now. "It's part of you." The rasping turned into words. Her name, her brother's name, her mom's name, people she hadn't spoken to in years. The voice knew things it shouldn't, things she kept buried. She screamed, her voice raw, as the trailer shook violently, like something was throwing itself against the walls. The road signs were gone, the highway a black tunnel with no end. The black truck was back, its green headlights filling the mirrors, its grill inches from her bumper. Lena pushed the Kenworth to 85, the engine screaming, but the black truck stayed with her, its horn blasting like a scream. Then it vanished again, leaving only darkness behind. Chapter 5. The Motel Trap. Lena saw a motel ahead, its sign flickering vacancy. She pulled in, her hands shaking so badly she could barely park. The trailer was silent, but the air felt heavy, like it was waiting for something. The motel was small, just a row of rooms and a tiny office. The clerk, an old man with a scarred face, handed her key. "Room 5, he said, not looking up. She asked if he'd seen a black truck on the highway. He just shook his head. "Don't go near that trailer," he said. "Some things don't like the light." Lena didn't sleep. She sat on the motel bed, tire iron across her lap, staring at the window. The trailer was parked outside, under a flickering streetlight, but the light didn't touch it. It was like the trailer was a void, swallowing the glow. Around 3 a.m., she heard the rasping again, right outside the window. She pulled the curtain back. The trailer doors were open, and the thing was standing there, its glowing eyes fixed on her, its head twitching. She didn't scream. She just watched as it raised a long, bony arm and pointed at her. The window cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading across the glass. Lena grabbed her keys and ran to the truck, not looking back. She drove, the trailer shaking so hard it felt like it might break apart. The rasping was everywhere now, in the cab, in her head, chanting her name. Chapter 6. The Final Delivery. The highway was a nightmare, the black truck appearing and vanishing, its headlights blinding, its horn a scream in the dark. The figures were back, lining the road, their glowing eyes watching, their arms reaching. The CB was a chorus of voices, screaming, whispering. laughing. "You took it, Lena," they said. "You let it out." She didn't know what they meant, but the words cut deep, like they were pulling something out of her. The glow of mobile appeared through the darkness, a faint promise of safety. Lena pushed the truck to 90, the engine screaming, the trailer rocking like it was alive. The figures were everywhere, their arms clawing at the cab. The rasping was a roar, and the trailer felt like it was dragging 1,000 tons. She reached the warehouse just before dawn, her hands trembling so badly she could barely park. The trailer was silent, the doors still shut. The warehouse manager, a short woman with a clipboard, didn't ask questions. "Leave it and go," she said, her voice clipped. Lena unhitched the trailer and drove away, the Kenworth feeling light without the load. She never called Earl again. She never took another job. The voices didn't stop, though. Every night, in her apartment, she heard the rasping, faint but there. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those eyes glowing in the dark. Months later, she heard a story from another trucker. The trailer was still in that warehouse, untouched, unopened. Workers said it hummed at night, and sometimes the doors moved on their own. Lena sold her truck, burned the manifest, and moved to a new state. But she still checks her mirrors, even in her car, waiting for those eyes to appear. And sometimes, in the quiet, she hears her name whispered in the dark.